Welcome to PPR Global. Iranian airstrikes against Israel have put the Middle East under great threat. There is now talk of Israeli retaliation plans. The Israeli War Cabinet has decided to retaliate against Iranian airstrikes using more than 300 drones and missiles. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has given Benny Gantz full authorization for the retaliation plan. But Iran has warned of a much more violent response if Israel strikes. Realizing the grave danger, the United States, one of Israel's most important allies, has decided to increase its military presence in the Middle East. This stunning decision shocked Iran and Russia, Iran's most important ally in the region. The Pentagon was the first to inform the press about the decision to send additional troops. The Pentagon announced that additional U.S. fighter squadrons were moving to the Middle East. Pentagon Press Secretary Major General Pat Ryder said that Air Force fighter squadrons in the region, as well as Navy ships in the Mediterranean, are joining the effort to destroy Iranian missiles and drones. These ships are reportedly equipped with new laser drone defense systems. These defense systems are a vital deterrent to Iranian kamikaze drones, especially the shaded 136. It is also claimed that the U.S. will send additional forces to the Middle East, including B-52 long-range strategic bombers as before. Additional U.S. air and naval forces will assist the USS Carney and USS Arleigh Burke Navy destroyers currently on duty. And both of these ships have shot down some of the missiles fired by Iran at Israel. Pat Ryder pointed out that Israel's request for more military support would increase the number of troops deployed to the Middle East, and that the United States would provide Israel with a much greater deterrent against Iran in the region. Following Mr. Ryder's remarks, White House officials confirmed that the Defense Department would send additional troops and equipment to areas in the Middle East following reports of a potential attack on Israel. The deployments are designed to support regional deterrence efforts and increase force protection for U.S. forces, a defense official said. Earlier in the day, White House National Security spokesman John Kirby similarly declined to elaborate on U.S. military posture changes in the region, but said administration officials were closely monitoring the situation. John Kirby emphasized that the potential Iranian threat here is real and viable. Mr. Kirby also said that their focus right now is on talking to their Israeli counterparts to make sure they have what they need and can defend themselves. The national security spokesman added that efforts include making sure that U.S. troops in the region are properly prepared in case an attack occurs. These statements implied that U.S. forces would intervene in the event of an Iranian attack on Israel. But what will happen if Iran goes on the offensive despite the U.S. sending additional troops to support Israel? How many U.S. troops are currently in the region, and in what ways would they intervene in Iran? While there is no clear assessment of how many additional troops the Pentagon will send to the Middle East, it is known that there are currently more than 40,000 U.S. troops in the region. U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin had already put some 2,000 personnel on high readiness in the Middle East before the Iranian attacks on Israel. This number is expected to be much higher with the latest deployment of U.S. military units. Some military sources believe that the latest White House decision will send another 1,000 U.S. troops to the Middle East. This means that with this latest contingent, the number of U.S. troops in the Middle East will reach or perhaps exceed 45,000. This huge contingent is as large as Hezbollah's armed forces in southern Lebanon. More than 2,500 of these troops are in Iraq. U.S. troops in Iraq are scattered in facilities such as Union 3 and Ain al-Assad Air Base. It is vital for Israel's national security that thousands of U.S. troops are ready in case Iran increases the number of armed elements and Revolutionary Guard units in Iraq. It is claimed that the commanders of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards and the armed elements of the Tehran regime will make additional shipments to Syria via Iraq and organize attacks across the Israeli border. U.S. troops are also on alert for the Tehran regime's plans in Syria. Approximately 900 U.S. troops are in Syria to conduct counterinsurgency operations against the activities of pro-Iranian armed groups. In the northeast of the country, near the border with Iraq and Jordan, there is a small outpost known as the Al-Tanf Garrison. This is where the bulk of U.S. troops are stationed. About 100 of them are supporting the Free Syrian Army, a coalition of opposition militias in the ongoing Syrian civil war. The U.S. is keeping this force on standby in case Iran plans a surprise attack on Syria one of the places where the White House protects Israel's national security against Iran is Jordan. Although the presence of the U.S. military is a sensitive domestic issue in Jordanian politics, as of June 2023, there are about 2,900 U.S. military personnel there at the request of the Jordanian government. Jordanian air bases in particular have been important for U.S. intelligence missions in Syria and Iraq. Now, in the context of Iran's threatening plans against Israel, the U.S. military presence in Jordan has become even more important. Qatar is another country where the United States has a military presence to counter the armed forces backed by Tehran. Another important non-NATO ally, Qatar is crucial to U.S. military strategy in the region. At least 8,000 U.S. forces are deployed at the large Al Udeid Air Base southwest of Doha, which houses the regional headquarters of the U.S. Central Command. It is the largest U.S. military facility in the Middle East, but also hosts Qatar's Air Force and air forces from other countries, including the United Kingdom. From this airbase, the U.S. is able to deploy its preemptive forces in the event of an Iranian missile or drone attack on Israel. In addition to Qatar, Bahrain is another country where the U.S. has taken military security measures against pro-Iranian armed forces. Bahrain has been designated as an important non-NATO ally, allowing it to purchase certain weapons and conduct defense research with the United States. As of 2022, there were more than 9,000 U.S. military personnel assigned to NSA Bahrain, a U.S. naval base that is the headquarters of the U.S. Naval Forces Central Command and the U.S. Fifth Fleet. It is the only permanent U.S. littoral naval base in the Middle East, and the port of Khalifa bin Salman in Bahrain is one of the few facilities in the Gulf that can accommodate U.S. aircraft carriers and amphibious ships. From these strategic sites, the U.S. can utilize the military forces it has on standby to counter Iranian attacks on Israel. The U.S. also has a significant military presence in Kuwait. Thousands of U.S. forces have been stationed in Kuwait since 1991, when a multinational coalition led by the U.S. drove Iraqi forces out of the country as part of the First Gulf War. The country also served as an important logistical base for U.S. and coalition forces during the Iraq War. In 2021, Kuwait had 13,500 U.S. personnel and thousands of pieces of equipment, mainly at Camp Arifjan and Ali al-Salem Air Base. An important non-NATO ally, the country is also home to thousands of German, Japanese, and South Korean troops. Another country in the region that is important for the United States to counter Iran's dangerous strategies is Saudi Arabia. In December 2022, there were more than 2,700 U.S. troops stationed in Saudi Arabia to train, advise, and assist its armed forces and protect U.S. interests in the region from Iran and its proxies. According to the White House, the troops there maintain air and missile defense systems and support the operation of military aircraft. The United Arab Emirates is another country where the U.S. has established a military buildup against Iranian armed groups. The UAE has been a key U.S. ally in the Middle East for years and is home to up to 3,500 U.S. personnel. A large number of U.S. forces are based at Al Dhafra Air Base, which has the Gulf Air Warfare Center, a regional air and missile defense training center jointly operated by the UAE and the U.S. The country's ports are also critical for the U.S. Navy, as they collectively host more ships than any other non-U.S. port. Oman is another country where the United States has strengthened its military buildup to counter Tehran's methods of meddling in the Middle East. There are several hundred troops in Oman, mainly from the U.S. Air Force. The country allows the Air Force to make thousands of overflights and hundreds of landings each year, while U.S. ships can make 80 port calls a year. Port access was expanded in 2019. Also, earlier this year, the U.S. transferred an additional destroyer and fighter jets near Oman in response to the Iranian Navy's seizure of commercial vessels in the Strait of Hormuz and the Gulf of Oman. Finally, the U.S. has more than 1,000 troops in Turkey, a NATO member, primarily at an air base near Adana and an air station near Izmir. In short, in the event of an Iranian attack on Israel, the United States has more than 45,000 troops on standby in different areas of the Middle East. Thank you for following us.